All right. So let's say we have an HTML document with one field. So there's just one field here, right? Where I'm going to type something and I want to validate that input. Let's say that we're talking about a telephone number, okay? So I'm going to create a function, right? On click. Let's say validate telephone number, validate tel. Okay? So I'm gonna come here, create a function, validate telephone number. So in this case, since I am calling it straight from a button on click, right, I cannot parse any values in here, or I cannot parse the value written there because I don't have it yet. I mean, as we program it, is not there, is not initialized. So the function will have to look for it, something like document dot get element by ID. Look for that element, which is my input, get the value, right? And I'm gonna save this as the telephone. Okay? Now, if I want this function to be used over and over and over with many different telephone numbers and without having the same input, then the function should require a parameter where we're gonna put inputting the telephone. All right? So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to create a function of its own, validate telephone, and I'm going to create another function named validate. Then validate will call validate function, validate telephone, sorry, and then I can send validate telephone to, I can send the telephone to the function validate tel. I can parse it now. Exactly. So when you're going to click on a form to validate, call the function validate, and this function will call other functions that will be validating things for you. Okay? So in this case, I only have one field. Let's say that I'm going to put a telephone number there. I click submit, I click validate, sorry. Validate will get that value, and it's going to check it if it's valid with my function validate telephone. Okay?
But in this case, like,
so I'm going to get the telephone, send it to validate telephone. Then validate telephone should tell me if the telephone is correct or not, is valid or not. So validate telephone should return something, right? True or false. Okay, so I'm gonna start by initializing a variable. Let's call this valid. And valid will start by being true. Then I'm going to make a series of tests. And if I find any error, I'm gonna make valid false. If there was no errors, I will just return valid as it is and will return true. If there was an error, it will return false. Right? So then, since the function validate telephone will return true or false, I can have a conditional here. For example, if validate telephone tel is false, meaning equal false, right? I can do something. I can like give back an error message. Okay? So before I continue with the validation, let me explain it again. On click, I'm going to call validate. Validate will get the value, and submit it or enter it into validate telephone function. Validate telephone function will get that value. We're going to make a series of tests. If everything is correct, we return true. If not, we return false. So at this point, it's going to return true or false. If it returns false, then there was an error and I have to give back an error message. Okay?
My input is the ID of what?
Okay, so validate tel will then check if telephone is correct. So let's see. We know that telephone numbers could have sometimes brackets, right? Could have spaces, could have dashes. Yeah? Or sometimes people will write it something like with dots. So first of all, what we're gonna do is to get rid of all those characters that are not numeric. Okay? So I'm going to take telephone and I'm going to replace on it for example, I want to look for an opening bracket. So it says look for an opening bracket and change it for nothing, which means remove it, right? There's no space here, no, absolutely nothing. So inside telephone, look for a bracket and replace it for nothing. That's going to remove the bracket, right? Once I do that, I have to save this. This is going to return the new value without the bracket. So I have to save whatever this is going to return to me. I'm going to save it in a variable. So let's say variable format telephone. Format tel. So I'm going to save inside format tel the new value. So for example here, if I'm going to use this one here with a dot, for example, okay? So let's pretend that we are using this telephone number. So we are replacing one parenthesis. So now we have something like this. Yeah?
Can't you just do both parentheses in one too?
No. Next thing, I'm going to remove the other parenthesis, right? So I'm going to remove this one. But now look at it. I'm using telephone. Telephone don't replace. Telephone is actually the full value. And I am replacing now the second bracket, which means that format telephone, okay, the first time I saved it with the telephone without the first bracket, the second time without the second bracket. So I am not really clearing it up. I am just saving new variables with replacing one single character. Instead, if I do not use telephone, I use the previous value, which was format tel. Yeah. Then format tel, before it was this value, right? Because the first time I removed the first bracket. The second time, from format tel, I remove the second bracket, right? And now it's gone. Now both of them are gone. That's why the first time I use the original value, and from that point on, I'm going to use format tel, because I'm going to keep on removing things from it. Then after that, we're going to get rid of, let's say, the dot. We're going to get rid of the dashes. Okay, so now in this case, after the last line, now I have only a number. Okay, maybe there were spaces, right? maybe there was a space here. So I'm gonna do the same thing and get rid of the space. Now in this one there's no more space. But what if, for example, there was a space everywhere? Right? The first time I remove the first space, but then how do I do to keep on removing spaces? No, it's going to remove only one. So for these kind of things, there is something called regular expressions, and regular expressions are going to help us to kind of like make a little program that will keep on searching for things according to a specific condition that we give. Okay, so if I want to find, for example, all the spaces, all of them, instead of quotes, I'm going to use slashes, and I'm going to look for a space, and then I'm going to say where is my thing? So then we're going to use here IG, which means I means allow any uppercase, lowercase, and G means global match. Keep on looking, keep on looking. So this will keep on looking for all the spaces, all of them. Okay, if I had, for example, A, it will keep on looking for all the A's. Right? If I have B, all the B's. So space means look for all the spaces and remove them and change them for nothing. So remove all the spaces. So with this here, we get rid of all. So this is called regular expressions. All right? We can find regular expression that is actually going to do all these lines in one single expression, all of them. All right? So we're going to be looking then for, let me change this GI. So we're going to be looking for all the dashes then, all the dots, all the brackets, closing brackets, which there should be only one, but just in case if there's more, and all the opening brackets. Okay? Now, sometimes things that we're looking for are reserved. You cannot use them. Okay? They mean something in the regular expression, so we have to escape them. Meaning, this doesn't mean concatenate, for example. This means a dot, really a dot. So we have to backslash it, right? So you have some characters you need to backslash. If it doesn't work, it's because you have to backslash them and make sure that they are not going to affect with your code. Okay? So now, after this format, we are supposed to end up with a number. Just a number. What? Okay. So, now we say if, right? Let's check for a telephone. Now we're sure that we don't have any more characters, only numbers. So if format tel, right, is not a number, so the way to do that is not a number. That's the way to check if it's not a number. If it's not a number, then we make valid equals false. What else? Maybe to make sure that the telephone number is valid, we need at least 5 digits, right? 514, 333, 44. So we need 5 digits in a telephone number. So if it's not a number, or if format tel dot length, the amount of characters, dot length is less than 10, also valid is false, right? Or if it's big, if it's longer than 10, all right? Sometimes we can have like a 1 at the beginning, right? 1 something. So let's say that if format tel.length is actually bigger than 11, let's allow that extra character in case it's there. So if any of these happens, make valid false. If none of this happen, valid will remain true. So at the end of my function, I will return valid, which will be either true or false, right? So then after that, when I check if validate telephone tel gives me back false, I have to do something. This will return to me false or true. Then I can maybe look for, I don't know, my ID results, document dot get element by ID, capital B, get element by ID results dot inner HTML equals, I don't know, wrong number, right? Only if the telephone is false, only if there is an error in the telephone. So let's see, let's hope it's gonna work. 514-333-2244. Apparently, no, there's an error. Let's see what's the matter. Document then by ID is null. My input, quotes. Thank you, sir. This is not a variable. This is a string. All right. Let's do it again. Up. All right. Yep, it's valid. Let's add something weird, like wrong number. Oh, okay, good idea. We can, let's go check here. Let's do console.log and show format tel. So let's see how it was formatted. Okay, 514 space 333 space 4455. Validate console. What happened? Oh, there you go. Perfect. It removed all the spaces, right? Let's see. Let's add some brackets here. Validate. Again, no brackets. Let's look for dashes. Gone. Let's look for dots. Also gone. Right? So now what we're doing, we're getting rid of all that stuff we don't need. Add spaces as well. And since we use G, which means global match, it looks for all of them. So it removes all the dots, all the dashes, all the spaces, all of them, and it just gives us back a number. We test that number. We make sure the number is actually a number. So if I have a letter somewhere like an A, that's wrong. There is an A, that's not a number anymore. We check if the length is at least 10. So if I get rid of one number, that's also wrong. Now I'm missing one digit, that's only 9. If I have more numbers, that's also wrong. Right? And what else? If that's pretty much it, that's our test. Right? So we're making sure that telephone number is correct. All right? Now, all of this is like a very long way of doing it. And we can actually have one single regular expression that is going to test our value. That's why there is something called dot test. Dot test will take a regular expression and make the test over the value. So that's how we're going to do with our next validation. We're going to create a function to validate emails. Function validate email. Okay. Also, this function will need a parameter, so we'll require an email to test on. Right? All right. So let's see. So let's say that we want to do all of this in one single expression. Let's try to understand the format. We're gonna add also to find for plus numbers, right? In case there was something like 1 plus, you know how sometimes they do that, meaning like it's in Canada, whatever. So we're gonna find for all the plus signs and get rid of them, right? So we can do all of this. We can do this whole expression in one single line. So first, remember how we open, close the regular expression with slashes. So we start like that: open, close. Then we are going to look for open, close square brackets. What are we going to look for? So we're going to look for this guy. So copy and put it there. Right? I'm going to look for this guy, copy and put it there. I'm going to look for this guy, copy, put it there. I'm going to look for this guy here, copy, put it there. Also going to put a backslash. I'm going to look for a space. I'm going to look for a plus. Okay? And then all of this global, right? If there were any characters and I want to make sure that the characters, I don't care if they are uppercase or lowercase, I can say I. But there's no characters here. There's no ABC. There's no letters. Sorry. There's characters, but there's no letters. So I don't need to know if they are lowercase or uppercase. So just G, that would work. So then we can just say format telephone equals telephone, like the original telephone, right? Replace all of this expression and replace it for nothing. Okay, so I'm going to look for all this expression, all of this, and replace it for nothing. So basically, instead of going step by step, I can do it one shot. So I'm going to create a variable here, comment this part, and try the test. So let's see, validate. It's working, right? If I add something that is not supposed to be there, wrong number. Okay? So basically we took all of these lines into one single line. Now, let's see for the validate email. Okay, so for the email then, I'm going to get the variable of the email. Then I'm not going to use replace. I'm going to use something called test. Okay? And test, what it's going to do is going to take the regular expression and test it over my value. So for example, I'm going to create here a variable. Let's call this regular expression email. Okay, and I already have here the regular expression to check for email. Okay, it's all of this. Look, it's kind of the same weird things that we were doing before. This was very simple. The one for the telephone was very simple. But now for the email, we really have to check that there is an arrobas, that there is a dot, you know, like at dot something .com or .ca or dot whatever, you know, that you cannot put specific characters. So it becomes more complex, right? Well, all of this is going to check for it. This regular expression is going to check for it. I'm going to save it into a variable. And then I have to test if my email is correct. So for example, I'm going to say email instead of replace, dot test, and I'm going to test the regular expression of the email. I'm going to change this for regex. That sounds more. I'm going to test for this email, and this will return true or false. So maybe try to use the same structure as before, that I have a variable valid. I can say variable valid equals to email.test. So then valid will have either true or false. Once I'm done, return valid. So now my function using a regular expression is going to return true or false depending on the format of the email. I can use now this function to validate the email. So let's go back to our validate function. Instead of validate tell, I'm going to validate email. Let's say that now I'm going to be getting an email from the input. We check it. If there's any error, wrong email. Right? I'm not going to check for telephone, I'm going to check for email now. So let's see. Go back here. I'm going to put an email, something like name at domain.com. Oh, there's an error. So sorry guys, this is another format. So sorry. Here we have to put the regular expression dot test. I am going to test the email. Sorry, it's the opposite. Okay, regular expression dot test the email. So there you go. Seems to be fine. If I make something wrong, like I'm missing the dot, wrong email. If I have the dot but I'm missing the at, also wrong email. Okay? If I have some weird characters here that I shouldn't have, also wrong email. Alright? So basically you can look for, when you want to validate something, you can look for regular expression to validate an address. You're going to find it. Now you know how to use that regular expression. You make sure that you save it inside a variable and you make a test over the value that you want to validate.